Welcome. I'm Kiki Gale, Director of the Dance for Parkinson's Partnership at People Dancing. In these unprecedented times, I've been hugely impressed with the creative and dynamic response from the arts and cultural sector, and everyone taking part, seizing the opportunities, testing the technological possibilities, leaping into the unknown of engaging creatively in this way. Our work is usually focused on bringing people together. How have we been achieving this when it is exactly what we haven't been able to do? I'm delighted to have a group of dance artists, dancers and producers around our metaphorical table to hear about our experience. I'm now going to hand over to Sheryl McChesney, who will be our guide through this discussion today and has played a crucial and central role in inspiring and shaping the questions we will explore.
Thank you, Kiki, and welcome to everybody, and so thanks to all our contributors who are here today. So we framed questions for everybody that were based around joys and challenges of the current situation. So some of the joys we thought of was maintaining relationships and keeping connected in new ways, of artists finding new ways to facilitate, expanding participants' awareness of what's possible online and maybe building new skills online and connecting with other art forms. Some of the challenges, obviously, do people have access online? How is that possible to facilitate? Are there concerns about people working on their own at home? Getting beyond being seated, how can we maybe extend and travel even when we're not in a studio space? And how do we keep the very special social aspects that we know that are so valued by participants when we normally meet in a physical way? So those are some of the things that we've talked to the artists and the participant dancers and other organisers about. So we're going to start with Lorato, who is based in Bristol, and Lorato is going to take a moment to tell us a little bit about her role there. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hello, everybody. My name's Lorato Dunn. I am speaking with two hats on today. I work for Bristol City Council as an Arts Development Officer. So I've had an opportunity at this time to kind of take a strategic view and talk to artists working across art forms and how they have adapted at this time. And I'm also, the other half of my time, a freelance dance practitioner. And I've been doing some work supporting not a Dance for Parkinson's project, but a project, Stroke Odysseys. And so I think there's been some interesting read across and learning across the different art forms and different projects. So I think I just wanted to share, thinking about the questions about what has worked and why. As Kiki said, the thing that we've seen across art forms across Bristol are the incredible response of all the artists in Bristol to make something happen and to think creatively and look at different ways of doing things. And that's been a real mix of some offline activity, thinking even of non-dance art forms, things like people being delivered postcards, images being delivered to people as inspiration to try out at home, but also ways people are moving online. For me, one of the things that I have really noticed is how much, and had feedback for, how much participants across the different groups I've encountered, how much it's meant to have an opportunity to still come together, even though it's not the same. It's been such a regular rhythm to people's lives. It's so important for people's health and well-being, and all the projects and participants I've spoken to have said, you know, those few weeks while we were working out what to do, where they were so at sea, and having an opportunity, even though it's different, to see everybody, to have a chat, to have those smiles. And a lot of the participants, particularly on the Stroke Odysseys projects I was working on, were shielding. Many people lived alone, so they weren't having contact with anybody else, and that value has felt really, really important. Interestingly, another thing in terms of learning for this time is about engaging people who weren't able to attend classes. This is I've talked to some participants, particularly from a theatre project, whose mental health challenges had meant that they might have come to one or two projects in the real world, but there were barriers for them getting there. And the artists have said they've then had new people that they haven't seen for years engage and continue to come because this opportunity gave them a different way to get connected. So those are some of the very initial observations. The practical learning, and there's so many things to say. Practical learning, I've been supporting Lucinda Jarrett on Stroke Odyssey's project, and I've taken quite a big role in the kind of admin side of tech support as well as dance support. So ringing people as we're all trying to get into the meeting to support them to come online. And that has been a lot of reflection for me, is how I always believe in the real world. It's really great when we can work in teams. I think there's something both for artists and participants about working together and sharing that space and providing support, having opportunities for conversation. And that has just been reinforced by the online world for me. And with my strategic hat on, that obviously has implications around budget, and something I've always argued for, but I think we need to continue to argue for, if this work is going to be successful, to have somebody being able to hold the space creatively while someone else in the background is on the phone and helping people do the technical things, and to be able to share and swap that role is really important. Just looking at your questions, I think creatively, for myself, what the pandemic has given me has been some time to reflect. I think there's also something interesting about the space it's given. So quite a lot of my work hasn't continued, but I've been able to use that time to play, and I've been doing little bits of playing, particularly in how this little box, I spend lots of time thinking about what this box means and how we can dance. My current obsession that I haven't got the answer to yet is, when I know we're all looking at each other in gallery view, but I think the order is different for everybody, and I haven't found a way to make it the same. And choreographically, I'd really like to, because I think there's something really lovely about, you're to my right at the moment, Cheryl, but I'd love to reach across and touch you in that box and space. And those are the ideas that I think there's real potential for the creative things that we do in dance, of how you can, you know, it's a different stimulus, isn't it? We all use different visual stimuluses in our work, and using that. The other thing I've really noticed is how, for me, in the bits of work I've been doing, using visual imagery, which I've always used in my work, but feels even more important in this context. I think there's something about when you're sharing and leading, people can copy you, but there's something about doing that in real space versus this screen. And I think something about the imagery that we use to help people to do that.
Well, as we know, yeah, absolutely, Lorata, as we know, using imagery when we're dancing is such an important thing. And I think there is a lot of scope for broadening our audio description and how we layer work, and how we give people that more information. I know Clint's been using a lot of visual. It would be really great to speak with Clint later about that technical way of using the screens, and ways that we can recognize that we are in front of a screen. We can't pretend to be in physical space. It's something about using the screen in a useful way. And recognizing that. Lorato, thank you. That was brilliant. Thanks so much for your contribution. Next, we'd like to ask Kate. Kate obviously is an artist with EMB, and but she's also an independent dance artist herself. And Kate, can you just give us a little of how things have been?
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful just to explain how it worked with English National Ballet's Dance for Parkinson's videos. It was right at the start of lockdown that EMB decided we're going to do this at-home series so people can keep dancing at home. And so it was about a week into lockdown, and we were like, okay, let's do these Dance for Parkinson's videos. And obviously there are quite a lot of questions. These were going out on Facebook, so it wasn't a kind of private group. So I kind of knew when developing the content that some of the participants that I normally teach, Alan being one of them, hi Alan, I knew that some of them would be watching, but there would also be a lot of people who I'd never met before, and was trying to make Dance for Parkinson content relevant for everybody, no matter where they were in the world. So we made one video as a kind of trial to see how it went, and amazingly it reached about 30,000 people who watched it. So it was a bit of a shock, and you kind of think, oh well, you know, you want to make sure that you're getting the level right. It's really hard knowing, you know, it's hard getting the level right in lots of Dance for Parkinson's classes anyway. As we all know, there's so many different variations that you want to offer. Then trying to do that online when you can't see anyone who's taking part with you. So it wasn't on Zoom where I could see other people watching. It was simply kind of teaching to a camera and hoping that it was going to work for people. So yeah, getting the level right was challenging, because also in a class at EMB we often have volunteers who might work with specific people, but in this setting there wasn't that as an option. It was just me in front of the camera, so you can't even show different options. You know, you don't want to be talking forever, although I think I probably did talk too much, but yeah, so level and pace, you know, as an artist teaching, you're always kind of looking around the room and thinking, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Should we do that again? And you just couldn't do that. But I think one of the good things about doing online was that you can just say to people, you know, we can, if you want to do that again, you can stop, you can rewind. If I've gone too fast, you can pause, you can, all those things that in a normal dance class you can't do. So whilst like you kind of thought the level that you've got to get right, you also had this freedom that, yeah, but people can repeat the class if they found it a little bit tricky the first time, they can do it again and practice it. So it was kind of, you know, two sides. I think the other thing I felt leading was just getting, you know, that energy that we all know when you're in a room full of people breathing and moving together, suddenly just in your own kitchen by yourself trying to create that same energy just wasn't, it's not the same. But I did sort of still feel there was this sense of, and I think maybe it was just echoed across the whole country in lots of different ways, that whilst everyone was kind of alone in their kitchens or their lounges, wherever they were also together. We were all together alone, if that makes sense. So it was trying to kind of recreate that in the dance class setting. So yeah, so that was another thing. And then we kind of, you touched already on the safety that, you know, I think I was particularly aware when definitely leading the second and third classes that, you know, you want to be responsible and take care of people and make sure that you're not asking them to do anything unsafe in the space. So things like, you know, standing and even physically for me recording it was actually quite challenging, knowing how to fit that onto the camera and things. So I certainly felt there was a little bit more, wanted to take things a little bit safely, which perhaps, you know, this was right at the start of lockdown. As things went on, you know, I'm sure, particularly if I had a group that I was just interacting with on Zoom, rather than this kind of Facebook group a Facebook video that's going out to everybody, then I might have taken a few more risks. But I wanted to make sure that we were playing it a little bit safer than you might in a normal dance class. What was I going to say? Yeah, but the one last thing I thought was great about all of it was firstly convenience and this reach that we were able to get. So people could take part in the class no matter what time of day, wherever they were. They could wake up and do it first thing in the morning, or they might do it last thing before they go to bed. You know, they didn't have to travel anywhere to get there. They didn't have to even get changed or anything like that. So, and a lot of those barriers can be a barrier for people not coming to a Dance for Parkinson's class that was suddenly removed. So I thought that was fantastic, actually, that we were just able to reach people. And I really hope that after the lockdown and when classes do start up again, that we'll still have this element of the class recorded for those people who can't go there that week, or so that people don't miss a class, or and also the convenience of people being able to watch for being able to watch and take part in maybe 15 minutes and then go, right, I've had enough of that now, I'm going to stop and do something else if they've only got 20 minutes to give. So it's not kind of a 3-hour chunk of their day. But yeah, so I ultimately, I think it was great. And I definitely think whilst there were challenges, it was so good. And it's kind of meant that we've learnt new things about how we can interact and use technology, and it does bring people together. And suddenly Facebook was an actual social a social media thing. We were all getting social on Facebook again, rather than it just being an advertising tool. So
I love what you're saying about the sense of choice as well, about giving people, you know, a time of the day that they might want to do it, or just doing part of the class and coming back to it, or repeating it. Also that stretch out, because I know that people in Japan and America, you know, like that,
yeah,
connections of being able to, obviously Clint's in France today talking to us, we're all over in different parts of Britain, so you know that connectivity across space and time, I think, is really useful to think forward with.
yeah, it just made everything possible.
Thank you, Kate, thank you. And Alan, if Alan's there, Alan, have you taken part in any of Kate's classes online? Maybe.
Most of the break. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can now.
Oh, all right. No, I didn't, because I've been sadly unwell for different reasons during this break. And so I didn't take part in any of Kate's classes at all. So
You're in trouble, Alan.
yeah. And also, I haven't got my PA who works with me today. So, and this is the worst time of the day for me, because having Parkinson's, I shake quite a lot. So hopefully I'm not going to have to do too much fiddling around on the screen. What would you like to know about me? Well, I was made ambassador for English National Ballet, which was a very nice thing to be involved with. And I've, over the last year or so, I suppose I've been involved with doing designing Christmas cards, funny Christmas cards, doing the logo for Dance for Parkinson's that they wear on the back of the t-shirts. And generally coming up with ideas, meeting up with Fleur, who I'm meeting up with on this Friday, so God knows what she's got lined up for me. But generally what I found, knowing so many Parkinson's people, Kate's video went down very well, but through so many people that had Parkinson's, like myself, and were locked in for that period, they found it very difficult to motivate themselves, and also their lack of mobility, getting out and about, like I do a gym. And I recently set up kickboxing and boxing for Parkinson's patients as well, which was really going down well. And that stopped. My gym membership stopped. Everything stopped. So it made me become a lot weaker and a lot more shaky, which you'll probably see now. And this not only went for me, but went for many of my friends in Parkinson's. all sort of struggling with the same thing.
Mm.
Their bodies have stiffened up or shaken up, one of the two. So what I'd like to do here today is get more ideas across what we can do, as well as Kate's wonderful videos, is to prepare for something like this. Because I know so many Parkinson's patients that are finding it difficult to get out of their house. That, you know, so that's what I'm about.
Mm. And how have you been keeping in touch with your friends, Alan?
Well, the problem with is the Parkinson's patients that have shakes find Zoom and all the other things quite difficult to do, especially when you're on your own and things go wrong. Like now, I'll be all right by about 1 o'clock, but by now, if something goes wrong with the screen or something and they say mute it or do it like that, they can't do it. That's what we found most difficult. I have people, you know, saying, well, it's all right going on Zoom, but how do you get on Zoom? And I use Zoom quite a bit, but this is more complex than I usually do. So that's the problem we have, is getting it across the people and getting other sorts of ideas to entertain them.
So filmed content, Alan, would suit better for you. Would film content then suit better that you can access it when you want to?
Yes, much better. And
rather
maybe
than a live.
Yeah, maybe a CD as well for people that haven't got, you know, just got a CD attached to the television or whatever would work better.
Or written content or things sent to you, would that help as well, rather than
yes, that would help, yes.
Yeah.
And more of, sorry Kate, more of your great work as well, you know, for people that can access it easily. But I've learned so many patients have really struggled with this, with the lock-in and not being able to go out. And so that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Sorry if it gets too complex and you lose me, you know, I'll be trying to find my way back in.
Okay, thank you. It's really, really useful to hear how things have been for you, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. At this moment, everyone, is there, like, I think what Alan's saying there is so important that we remember, you know, those challenges with technology, challenges of being on your own, challenges with time of day. So has anybody got anything they'd like to add at this point from what we've heard so far? Steph.
Yes, thank you. I'm Stephanie Street and I have Parkinson's as well. I've had DBS, so I don't shake, but I have plenty of the other symptoms. I agree entirely with Alan. This has been a terrible time for Parkinson's patients because they didn't fall into the shielding group. Most of us fell into the second group of vulnerability. So we were advised to stay at home and virtually be locked down. And we haven't been able to go out. We haven't been able to exercise as much as we should. So we have lost the mobility we had. And once lost, it's very, very hard to get it back. I've been lucky that I have been able to dance twice a week, but most people haven't. The other thing I wanted to say is that certainly in our area, a lot of the participants in the dance class are elderly, and they simply are not computer literate. I mean, never mind Zoom. They, you know, if they do emails to their family, they're doing pretty well. So we have got a lot to do to get around everybody and find them a way of accessing this. I mean, film and CD fine, but not Zoom and things like that. It's too advanced. And I think that will be the case for probably about another 10 years. And then I think that everybody will be, you know, computer literate.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. It's because Rachel and Donna are going to speak a little bit later about how for their groups that's been a progression that's taken time and support. So we'll hold on to that thought for a little bit later. I know that Rachel and Donna are going to talk about that. But Stephanie and Heidi, you've been playing a bit with Zoom, haven't you? Have you been playing with potentials?
Do you want to kick off, Steph?
Yeah. Should we can maybe get Stephanie and Heidi to speak together. Would you be happy to carry on and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Okay, shall I start, Heidi? Right. Well, we started our dance class about 6 years ago. We call it Strictly Parkinson's, and we normally between 13 and 15 people. And it's just for people with Parkinson's, their carers, and we do have some Parkinson widows who are very helpful because they're more able-bodied than us, and they can help. If there's only one leader, sometimes two people need a bit of help, or, you know, something like that. It's a very happy group. It's very sociable, so it's very important, that part of it, the social side. We have a cup of tea and a chat beforehand, and what's meant to be a 40-minute lesson is about 2 hours now because we sit down and talk. And we were devastated when this lockdown came, absolutely devastated, because we miss each other, and had I not had an opportunity to dance with Heidi and also with Angharad in Theatre Clwyd, I would have had no exercise other than in my garden, really. I garden. So yeah, we've been with Heidi and a couple of her dance leader friends. We've been exploring what is possible to do on Zoom. I'll let Heidi explain more about that.
Lovely, thank you, Steph. Well, to pick up from there, I think I've been doing a lot of reading, listening, going to various Zoom events that have been happening during lockdown. And words which have come up both from Strictly Parkinson's and this whole experience really has been, well, what's the purpose of dance, full stop, and what's the purpose of dance within our current moment? And thinking about Strictly Parkinson's and also a group of people I work with in Pontypool, the words which come up are communication, togetherness, fellowship and support. So really echoing what Steph has beautifully articulated. So my question in relation to the current moment is, digital exclusion becomes an ethical issue if togetherness, fellowship, support and communication actually are what are central to the practice. So the Zoom dancing, I think, has had to be something other and something different, and by no means a replacement for Strictly Parkinson's and our weekly sessions, because only 2 members out of our 15 are currently able to access. So we didn't want what we're currently doing to be exclusive, as opposed to inclusive, because that's very much what we're about. So it has been something other, and quite deliberately so, not only because of that deep ethical question, which I think we're still grappling with, but also because of the technology, which is new to me, it's new to Steph, it's new to most of us. So I suppose what we've been playing with are about what are the constraints that in this instance Zoom presents, and how can those constraints present us with artistic possibilities, which are quite different perhaps to those possibilities that may exist within a face-to-face class situation. We've also been constrained by our 40-minute timeout, because I haven't bought the professional Zoom package. So that has served the purpose of being very focused, with sometimes an abrupt ending followed by a flurry of email messages and reflections. So there's been a little bit of a rudeness in terms of the cut-off point, and we haven't had as much social time as we would normally want or like. A pleasure has been working with a collective of dance colleagues and dancers living with Parkinson's. So it's been a real exploration and a sharing and a getting to know. It's been quite a lot of fun. I wonder, Steph, I don't know whether you feel like articulating what some of the differences maybe are between what we normally do and what we've been doing via Zoom.
Well, we started in a similar way, in that we start with a visualization and a relaxation, led by Heidi. And I think we've all appreciated that, because I'm living with the frustrations of lockdown, and dancers are living very busy lives, very different lives. So everybody appreciates having a wind down, getting into the mood, getting into the moment. And then we've been exploring with imagery from poetry and music and our imaginations. And it has been more free in a way. We've let our imaginations go, and it's something we perhaps, as a non-dancer, as you know, just somebody who's enjoyed the lessons, I've felt it's very freeing. It sort of allows you to leave your inhibitions behind. Perhaps you wouldn't do that in a class. You would think the others will think I'm silly if I do that. Whereas you're at home, you can do what you like. You can explore possibilities. Some of it I think we could take back to the classes, and it's been great fun. And some of it perhaps we never will. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether we take back some of the ideas that we found.
That kind of cross-fertilization of things happening. I think what you're saying, Stephanie, about that privacy of being at home sometimes is protective, isn't it?
It is,
being in your own space, and maybe able to turn your camera off and just try things in your own way that, you know, obviously we can't do when we're in a studio group together. Heidi, I'm fascinated by that idea of accessibility. I think it's so important. You know, the last thing that we need to do at the moment is exclude people. So finding solutions to making it possible for people to come online and making sure that they have that capacity is so important. And I know that Rachel and Donna have been really looking at this in terms of their programme. Stephanie and Heidi, thank you so much was there anything else you wanted to say before we move forwards?
I think there's maybe one thing about leadership becomes very, very different, or has been for me, within this Zoom dance lab context, in that there's been a relinquishment of something, You know, Steph quite rightly said to me, you've got to give me some credit for looking after myself in my own space. There's been a really kind of almost like putting down a little bit of baggage in terms of the health and safety side of things, because I trust Steph and Sally to be able to keep themselves safe within their own space. And that has freed me up to dance as well within that context. And I think it's kind of shifted hierarchies in a way, because we've been dancing together on this explorative journey. So some of that responsibility of leadership has shifted, it's changed, the nature of it is different. It feels a bit more collaborative.
Yes, I think Heidi's very good anyway at accepting other people's ideas and trying to integrate them into what she's doing. I think she does that at Strictly Parkinson's. But yes, I know what you mean. We have been dancing together as friends, really, haven't we? And that's been lovely. Really, really nice.
Fabulous.
Very precious.
Thank you both. Thank you. Really lovely to hear that circle. You're talking about a circle, aren't you, of communication, even though it's through our screens. Okay, so Rachel and Donna, tell us a little bit more about your setting in your program and how things have been for the last few months.
Okay, perhaps I should introduce myself. I'm Donna Baber. I'm one of the Fresh Arts Programme Managers at North Bristol NHS Trust. So we work across Southmead Hospital in Bristol and a small hospital called Cosham. And Rachel, you introduce yourself, please.
I'm Rachel James, and I'm the Artistic Director of the Original Spinners, which is a small community dance company in Bristol. And I've been leading the Dance for Parkinson sessions at Southmead for just over 3 years now.
Since 2017. And,
yeah.
And Rachel and I were going to have a kind of a conversation this morning, because it's about 18 weeks that we've had of lockdown. And in that time, Rachel's done 15 weekly sessions and produced an amazing 35 video demos as well for our Dance for Parkinson's group. But we thought we'd have it as a bit of a conversation today. And Rachel, a bit of reflection. There's a comment that one of your participants said to me a little while ago. And she said, it's the most important part of my week. I think most of us would give up anything or everything else in order to keep our weekly Dance for Parkinson session. Yeah. And we used to run it on a Friday afternoon in the patient seminar rooms. And actually we'd really reached capacity, Rachel, hadn't we? We had about 18 people who came every week. And I remember walking into work and having a phone call from you one day to say, Parkinson's UK branch in Bristol have said that they're stopping all activity. What does that mean for your group, for our group? And yeah, I went into the hospital and sought advice, and our whole Fresh Arts programme at that time, we just put a stop on it. All activity stopped. And there was this kind of terrible sense of silence, I think, wasn't there? Yeah. And you kind of rightly reminded me something that I think that you guys did in the first instance, which was really important, was just to take some time. Yeah. So that time was probably around about 3 weeks while we communicated the message to patients that things were stopping and just reflected on what does this mean for all of us. And I think it was that patient's words that this is the most important part of my week, and I'd give up anything else. And actually now I'm in a position where I can't take part in that anymore. So initially, Rachel, you sent out 2 Fridays in a row, you sent out emails with the links to Dance for Parkinson's activities. And there was, it was like tumbleweed, wasn't it? You had no response, hardly at all. So I said, okay, well, I'll phone everybody. So I phoned all of our patients one by one and just had a chat with them. What would you like? The girls, the 3 dancers, Rachel, and Sophie, they could record some YouTube videos for you. They could give you a phone call check-in each week. You know, if we ever fancied it, we could try having a cup of tea all together on Zoom and see how that works. So I think you in terms of what you offered and my conversation with them, it gave them an option to engage in a range of different ways.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted the phone call from you. And a
Yeah.
few people said to me, oh, well, I watched the videos, but it wasn't Rachel and Sophie. And very shortly after they received your first videos, that was when the feedback was, oh, it was so nice to see them. And I know for myself, I felt a massive sense of relief to see you on the screen, showing them how to do the warm-up and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went for pre-recorded YouTube videos just so that people had the chance to choose when they did the class, whether it's in the morning or the evening. And we've sent 8 full classes, so kind of 45 to 50 minutes of class. And then we've also started making short videos, so 5 or 10-minute videos where it might just be a full body stretch or some work with the hands and feet. We're going to do a relaxation one next week so that people can just go, I only feel like doing 5 minutes today, or I might want to do a full class. So they've got this big library of movement work they can do now at home. And I think that most of the group are accessing those. So they just get sent a YouTube link every week. Yeah.
And you're still making those phone calls if people don't join in the Zoom session. So the Zoom, that really made me laugh. Because we said, okay, well, we'll try a Zoom, and people were very tentative and uncertain about it, weren't they?
Yeah.
And the first time you did it, a few people took the courage, and we talked them through it on the phone, what you need to do. And so a few people tried it, and I just remember, I think it was, it's probably okay to say an individual name. So a gentleman just said, oh, really enjoyed that. Can we do it again next week?
Yeah.
And so I remember getting an email from you saying, well, I think we might be doing it again next week. And the reflection I have over the last 15, 18 weeks is these emails that you sent out that had no reaction, just suddenly we're really enjoying these YouTube videos. And then that turning into a Zoom cup of tea.
Yeah.
And now we're having a Zoom cup of tea next week. And then in the next week, somebody spontaneously got up and started dancing. I'm not there, you know.
Somebody wanted to tell me about their favourite lockdown tune. So, and I'd learnt how to share sound through Zoom properly, because we tried the week before with an external speaker and that didn't work. And so we played, it was Things Can Only Get Better. So we popped it on and everybody just joined in dancing. So yeah, that afternoon I decided that needed to be a weekly disco. So now our Zoom every Friday for the last, I think, 4 weeks has been a disco and a cup of tea. So because we have one participant who doesn't want to do a Zoom class because visually that's difficult. But a Zoom disco means that everybody can dance because nobody's having to follow. And yeah, and it's amazing. I'm really blown away by how much playfulness there is and the willingness of everybody to take part. We've posted out cardboard love hearts to everybody with a message on, and then they've become a prop in our disco. So we've got a selection of props now. Sometimes we have a wooden spoon and we conduct an orchestra with a wooden spoon. And next week we're doing a delivery of feathers so that we can do our feather flock dancing on Zoom. So yeah, and it's been amazing how even, because I think I thought initially that this work's about connection and how could we connect through a screen. But I'm really blown away by by how playful everybody is, and how, you know, all across Bristol on a Friday morning, we're having a shared experience, and it is really joyful and beautiful. And yeah, so that I thought wasn't possible with technology, but it is. And yeah,
it's brilliant to hear, but it's also wonderful to hear how much energy you needed to put in order for that to happen. And obviously that's not always possible for people to, you know, take that time to phone every participant, or to be able to post things out, or, you know, that it's a lot of resource and time, isn't it, to do that. But I love the idea that initially there was no response, and then it's just taken time for it to unfold and open.
And from September, you're going to take a break in August. And the great thing is that you've got the YouTube videos, so people will be able to refer to those over the summer. So to me, it makes our programme seem quite sustainable, and also a nice way to engage new patients, because we'd reached a point where we couldn't advertise the group much more, because there wasn't physical space in the room for them to come in. But we can do that now. And also we can share those resources with them, so that they can sort of build up that relationship with us before joining in. And from September, Rachel, you're going to try doing a few actual Zoom sessions for people that want to try it, as well as the disco. So it's going to change. This is a lovely thing for me, is to watch how it's changing and how the participants are kind of leading that change with you.
Yeah, so we're going to try from September a class that they can follow along with for 45 minutes, and then anybody who doesn't want to take part in that can join for another 45 minutes of disco time. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Would anybody like to ask Heidi or Stephanie or Rachel and Donna anything about what they've described?
I'd like to ask something. With the Kensington and Chelsea branch of Parkinson's UK, the average age of the people are really a lot older and a lot more physically disabled. So I know they'd love to join Rachel or Heidi's group, but the technology is beyond them. So it's reaching those people. It's fabulous hearing the success of what Rachel and Donna have said, but it still only captures a small part of the community that I represent. Well, not represent. And we just haven't had the manpower or the mobility to set that up as well. You know, apart from Kate's, it's been pretty sort of lonely, I'd say, for most Parkinson's people I know that phone me up, and I chat to them and try to cheer them up. But yeah, I say the people.
I think it's so important that you're highlighting that, Alan, because of Fresh Arts are in a very unique. I don't know how many. Donna, do you know how many NHS trusts are doing the kind of work that you're doing across the country?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I know with the Arts on Referral programme that we run, that's the first of its kind in a hospital setting. So I would anticipate that it was quite a low level of NHS trusts that are able to offer something like a Dance for Parkinson's group. I just don't know that for certain. What I do know from the patients that I spoke to, there are two that the girls phone every Friday, and we haven't been able to help them to get onto Zoom. We've been trying, and of course technology is a challenge, because there's iPhone, there's Android, tablets, mobile phones, laptops, so it is challenging, and we do recognise that. And I think we've probably been quite lucky that you know, just through determination I think also possibly, I mean, our group, they know what they're missing. And as I explained through that quote, they're not prepared to miss out. So there's been a lot of conversations where neighbours have come round and they've been doing it through their front windows and sort of shouting at each other through the glass to try and connect themselves. So it's not been easy. And I think at the end of all of this, Rachel and her team probably should get some kind of IT certificate for the hurdles that they've managed to jump and to get people online. But we haven't had 100% success rate.
I think it's important to recognise as well how much more work is required in order for something to be a success. You know, in lots of ways we're so used to relying on our experience, but we're all having to learn new skills. We're all having to learn new ways of working in order to make this, you know, productive. But I think there are very special things that we can take into the future about it, and it's cherry picking those things that are available. Lorato.
I just wanted to speak quickly to Alan's point and the incredible work that Rachel and Donna have been doing, and also what Heidi talked about with digital exclusion. I think that it being an ethical issue is something we really need to be looking and taking forward. But I think partnerships is another way that we need to look at how we can make this happen. So just speaking from a local authority strategic perspective, there's been ways in which we've been looking at buying iPads to deliver to people. You know, obviously everything is shifting over time. We weren't able to have contact, but now, you know, what you might be able to do on a doorstep to set somebody up and hand over was different to what we had to do at the beginning. But it again comes back to the resource question. But I think Heidi is right. It's an ethical issue that we have to keep fighting for, to have the balance of choice. You know, it's not to say we should all be digital, but I think Alan's right that finding ways to support. And then the last thing about variety of choice, I think that's come really clear through Donna and Rachel. It is about phone calls, it is about video, that if we can find that mix, that's what's really coming through. I think Heidi wanted to say something.
Yeah, Heidi.
Yes, thank you. Alan, I'm really concerned about moving forward within this moment. I felt a little bit like my feet have been stuck in concrete and I haven't actually known where to go. And while some of you have articulated a sort of 3-week reflection and thinking time, I feel like mine has been considerably longer than that. And I'm still going through a little bit of a hiatus at the moment in terms of, well, what's the best thing to do? And I think that's partly because the way the groups I work with operate are very much, we very much operate together. And any decision making or problem solving happens together as a group. And this is a really serious problem. And I'm really feeling the loneliness of not having our togetherness in order to be able to move forward together and find a shared solution to the current moment. I haven't got an answer to that. I think phone calls are really important. I know Steph, we've got quite a good network anyway. I've been phoning people, Steph's been phoning people, people have been phoning each other, but we haven't been, you know, that's been a web as opposed to us all being together to solve this.
Yes, as a group we haven't done anything, and perhaps we should have, but we have kept in touch via sort of newsletters and things with the branch as a whole, not just the dance group. Yes, it's very difficult because some of us just really don't want to have a computer. You know, you say, are you online? And they go, oh no, I don't want one of those things in the house. You know, nothing but trouble. And it's an expense too, isn't it? I mean, you know, these things don't come free. So I don't know what we're going to do with them. As Heidi says, it's just a puzzle.
Well, I got, oh sorry, Age UK I'm a little bit involved with, and they've been giving out free mobile phones, which is a good start.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I see one of the leading neurologists at Queen's Square, and I was involved in helping someone set their Dance for Parkinson's sessions there. And when I went to see my neurologist, or I saw two neurologists, neither of them knew about the Dance for Parkinson's at all. And so many, I see physios, and I've got someone come to see me this afternoon, a physio, and she didn't even know about, Dance for Parkinson's.
It's amazing that awareness, or that how it changes in different parts of the country, Alan.
Yeah.
Actually Donna and Rachel Lorata were discussing something in Bristol that's very joined up and very connected and respected, as in arts and health working together very closely. And obviously Heidi and Stephanie are in much more of a community setting, and having to find that community support from each other without having the backup of a big organisation or a kind of health environment. So yeah, thank you. Kate.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I think one thing I did feel about trying to bridge the gap and get people online that was helpful, that I did see quite a lot looking at the Facebook comments and things, was whilst Facebook initially I thought Facebook isn't necessarily the right sphere for this, because a lot of the group will not be on Facebook, and I know that. Actually, lots of family and friends did see it on Facebook and were able to pass it on. So even though the participants themselves might not be, it was very much about connecting with family and friends, and I don't think you can underestimate that as well in terms of family and friends. I mean, I think the challenge in this case was that family and friends couldn't go around and set up the computer for them. But I did hear quite a lot of people getting phone calls, helping them, just as Donna described, helping them to set it up. So it was just, I guess it's just knowing that whilst it's a challenge, the more we can connect with the people around the people that aren't accessing the technology, that's also a way forward as well. Yeah, it's just that.
I just think Kate needs a better infrastructure to support what she's doing. And I don't think she's got that yet. So it would be nice to help her set, if it comes back on the second wave of this, it'd be nice that we were prepared for it.
I suppose, what's important to recognise is, Kate working for EMB have been completely, the whole team are furloughed. They're not there. They're not able to operate at the moment. And that uncertainty and still not knowing, how that will return, and lots of arts organisations are in that position where things have just been completely stopped, so it's a really important framework. Thank you for that, Alan. Enid, really like to talk to you about your film, because in discussing, keeping linked together, for everybody just to know, Enid's based in Liverpool. Enid, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the group up there?
Yeah, can I start at the beginning, because got a bit of an introduction. Yeah, I represent the group at the MDI Studios in Liverpool, Merseyside Dance Initiative, that stands for. I have Parkinson's, and I want to say at this point, I really empathise with you, Alan, because in December, between October and December last year, I was like you as well, because my husband had been in hospital and he had been critical. And it had a big impact on me, especially when he came home, and I was a carer for him for a change. And I needed my tablets tweaking, but I didn't get round to having it done until the new year. but I'm much better now. But I do have times where I shake, and it's when I'm nervous as well as normally. Yeah, we started off creating a WhatsApp group in February this year, and not everybody in the group of dancers joined our WhatsApp group because they didn't like social media or they didn't like technology, and we totally understood that, you know. But for the people that were within the group, it was a way of communicating during this lockdown, because although it didn't actually happen until mid-March, the end of March, we had already started passing information between each other and just generally keeping in touch. So then in April, Layla, one of our artist teachers, she suggested that we should do something online because of this lockdown. And we all, even the ones who had been doing WhatsApp, weren't very sure about that. And she explained to us that her idea was that in the lessons that we have from EMB, we finish off the lesson in a circle, and we pass an imaginary object around the circle, and we do our little bit of dance when we've got the object in our hands. So she said, we could do something like that. I'd like you to go I'd like you to do it in your own home. And we did. I'm sorry, I'm losing my track.
Because I've seen the film, and it's a beautiful. I don't know who edited the film together. You know,
it was. First of all, can I just say, Layla had the idea, but Jenny has also been involved, and they've been very supportive. But the person who edited it was our wonderful musician, Stephen, and he edited it, and it's brilliant. I mean, we thought when we did our bit, oh, that's not very good, you know, but when it was put together, it was great. What else was I going to say?
Clint, just going to say something. Clint,
just could you say what's the title of the film?
Yes, Poetry in Slow Motion, and it's on YouTube, and we couldn't get over that.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful film. So the dancers have their own object, and then it comes in one side, they dance bit, and then they pass.
That's right, pass it on. And it's been really encouraging for us, because the people who didn't want to be involved in social media, having seen this, have joined the WhatsApp group.
Mm.
And so we've been able to communicate during this lockdown, you know. And a lot of the people, as I am myself, are shielding. And so we've been incarcerated, if you like, for nearly 4 months.
Yeah.
And it's been very difficult I love gardening, as I think Stephanie or Heidi was saying. I love getting out in the garden, which is great when it's sunny, but what you do when it's raining, and you do feel very isolated, and you have days where you just don't want to do anything. And you wonder, you do have worries that it's going to go on forever, because we don't know whether it's coming back or not. But having done this and having been involved in dancing from the start, it's just been amazing for me, because I don't know what I would have done without the dancing. getting quite emotional.
I absolutely love the fact that the film has inspired other members of the group to
Yes.
feel more confident to connect.
Yes, yes.
I think
yes, it's been great because we were losing touch with them and we didn't want to lose touch. You know, some of them have got no outdoor space, you know, and it must be really difficult for people. I really empathise with them. Yeah, I'd rather answer questions than talk, actually, you know, so if you've got any questions, please.
Narrato.
I had a quick question for Enid. Did you film yourself doing your dance with your...
I did, yes, in the kitchen, trying to get the laptop, the iPad at the right angle.
It's just, that's so brilliant.
The dog looking at me thinking of Don Crackers.
I think it just really made me think about, we're talking about some of the challenges, but also some of the amazing opportunities, and hearing Enid makes me think about other projects where people are learning new skills and getting other ways to be creative and becoming a filmmaker, Enid.
Yes.
Really inspiring.
If only.
Well, I've got so many people to ring after I've seen Kate today to tell, you know, also when she's starting the next group up, you know, how long is it going to be? Because everyone loves Kate and her husband, and they go for the sessions just like Stephanie, for the company, the camaraderie. It's just wonderful what she's created.
Thank
you. Can I just say as well, we are really thankful for our leaders, our artists. Even in the film, they were involved in that. They're in our WhatsApp group.
And even their babies and their children.
Even their babies.
There are babies and children in the film, big past. It's absolutely glorious. Thank you, Enid. That's so inspiring to hear about the film. And talking about technology, Clint, what would you like to share with us?
First of all, I'd just like to say I'm really amazed by the level of engagement and reflection that I'm hearing in the group today. It's really wonderful, and I don't necessarily feel like that sort of engagement exists right now in France, or at least I'm not connected to a lot of people that are having the same sort of reflection. So I appreciate it a lot. In terms of what I've been doing with technology, as many people have mentioned, accessing the technology is already such a huge feat, and has been a real challenge for myself as well as for our dancers. I've spent countless hours on the phone trying to coach people of how to download everything from finding the app store on your phone to entering passwords and all of that. So that was a challenge, and it's sad to say, I wasn't very successful in coaching people to download and find their way in. Only a couple of people managed, the ones that I was coaching managed to actually get their way in there. But then people that actually were able to access Zoom, I myself, actually, we started by having just kind of a tea time and chat a couple weeks into the lockdown. I proposed that we meet and just have a chat. And at the end of the chat, I asked if people would like to put on some music and have a dance. And I thought the computers were going to break. People were so excited to move. So for a couple of weeks we did that, and then I said, okay, I couldn't imagine myself how I would practice, how I would teach on a computer and in this situation. So I said, let's try it once or twice, and then I'll see what I can do. So I went back really to a very basic place in terms of my practice, which is based on improvisation and somatic tools. But I work really a lot with touch and with connection and with play. So it didn't seem very obvious for me how to work on in this sort of format. But I got into it and started learning the tools, how to use Zoom myself. And then once we really got into classes, I would try to add, like every class, I would add one new element of related to Zoom, because each time you add an element, it takes a few minutes to explain where to find it, and people that are on phones or on tablets or on computers, and which kind of operating system and everything. So each class I would try to add maybe one new element, and then try to control as much as possible on my own, just to avoid losing time. So, and what else? Then in the practice, I would really try to bring people's attention to the fact that we are on a screen. So just to draw attention to, when am I looking at the screen? When am I not looking at the screen? And just in general, just really directing the gaze and directing people's presence to their environment at home, and to try to offer different options of how to connect with that environment. So searching up places, I would explain something, and then I say, I'm going to put on a song. You go and do it until the end of the song. So I would share the music via Zoom, give the idea, and tell people to go to a part of their house or apartment that they don't spend much time in, maybe a strange corner that there's no reason to go there, and to dance in those places, and to really try to change perspective on how they interact in their everyday environment, to maybe get a bit more playful with that. Yeah, so each week I would add one more little element, and then as the weeks go on, I would try to layer how we use those elements. Yeah, so, but still always keeping it as simple as possible. I'm involved in other online projects that I've gone much more in depth with telling people, with using the different functionalities. But I think that we can maybe think about making a list of feedback for Zoom, which I've started a small list just today of hearing what people have said, to have the same order for everyone. And sometimes I feel like just being able to control all of the functions for everyone as a host would be great. Yeah.
I love what you're describing, Clint, in terms of, your growth, in terms of, solving those problems by increasing your skill base, as an artist, and using the format that it is. I think that, there are advantages to look forward, even when we can come back physically, into space. I think there are things that we should carry into the future that are useful, of the new discoveries that we found, that we can hold on to, whether it's because people find it difficult to get to class physically, or whether, at times of the day it suits, or whether you just want to do a little bit of something rather than a whole class at one time. There's lots of things that can be thought, like Rachel describing over the summer, being able to leave class members with content that they can do on their own, even though she's not there. Yeah. Wow, thank you, Clint, thank you. And just finally, Kate, we haven't heard from you. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Kate Swindlehurst. I'm a writer and a dancer with Parkinson's based in Cambridge. I have a kind of dual profile as a dancer. For a number of years, I've been involved in social dancing of Argentine tango, not as part of a specialist group, but in the kind of mainstream, really. about 10 years ago, 7 years after I was diagnosed, I think, I took up tango again and was really excited to discover the kind of powerful impact on my experience of Parkinson's. So excited that with 2 tango teachers, we started exploring and kind of documenting the different effects, which grew into an article and then a book, which was actually finally published in April this year. So for me, there's a double kind of irony and a double agony, really, that when the book is now available, it's come at a time when tango is not. It was, you know, one of the first casualties of the lockdown. It's a dance of close embrace. And there is no knowing really when or even if it's going to come back. And the second irony or the second agony for me is that at the point at which the book has been published, increasingly the joy of tango is kind of less available to me because the progression of my Parkinson's has kind of stepped up. So I'm very grateful to Kiki for the opportunity to record some extracts from the book, which are going to be available online, I think, a kind of month by month lockdown story of tango related to the book. So the ways I've managed to keep that going, I have one friend who suggested quite early on that we should practice independently for half an hour a day. But as you will imagine, since tango is a partner dance, that's pretty soul destroying, particularly when a lot of what I'm doing, if I practice walking, which is the basis of tango, it's like an exercise in trying not to fall over, trying not to be tripped up by freezing and so on.
Has Kate, I think Kate might have frozen in time.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Tango music experts, really, who apparently I've got an unstable internet connection, sorry, who